Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the weekly Shir in Yonagul Moshiach on the internet. Thanks to you and your participation, this Shir has grown to be the largest Shir in Yonagul Moshiach in the world, and I'm sure that in the merit of this Shir and in the schus of all of us together learning in Yonagul Moshiach, which I do encourage that you share what you've learned here in the previous Shiurim with your friends, family, and neighbors. And I'm sure in the schus of us learning together, we will merit right away the Izgalos of Melech HaMoshiach. This shir tonight is Lili Nismas, Rabbi Yisrael Shimon Kalmanson, Olav Shalom, who just recently passed away. He's the father of the head shliach of Chabad of Southern Ohio, Rabbi Shalom Ber Kalmanson, and Rabbi Yisrael Shimon merited to be for many years the Rebbe's personal shoichet. Erev Yom Kippur, those famous pictures of those special moments of Erev Yom Kippur, the Rebbe doing kaparis, the Rebbe's shoichet is Rabbi Yisrael Shimon Kalmanson, and I am sure that the schusim that he has is standing by him now as he's entering Olam HaEmes. This is the 12th shir in our new series of shiurim, which B'Hashgacha Pratis, the number 12 is actually very much connected to the topic of tonight's shir. Tonight's topic is the reunion of the 12 Shvatim in the times of Moshiach. Which, let's give some background to that statement. We all know that throughout the years, Jews have been dispersed throughout the world, different exiles. But the most famous exile is the exile of the 10 Shvatim. Many people have heard about the 10 Shvatim, the 10 tribes that were exiled, and many people know vague details that there's some river that throws rocks called Sambatyan, and the Shvatim were sent over there, and they will be coming back. They won't be coming back in the times of Moshiach. So this is a very vague topic, and I remember as a kid being interested in this topic, the 10 lost tribes. It always comes up in different mystery books about the 10 lost tribes. So I will try to outline in this year and Amir Hashem the coming year the Torah perspective on the 10 tribes. Now, as a child, this is what I was told, and maybe many of you were told the same thing. If I had to sum up the exile of the 10 tribes, the Aseret HaShvatim, the statement would go like this. At a certain point, in the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash, one of the Roman kings, Nebuchadnezzar, he came and he destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, and he took the 10 tribes and he brought them all together to a very, very distant land, and he put them all behind a river known as Sambatyan, a river which throws rocks the whole week except for Shabbos. There they are waiting till Moshiach, and when Moshiach comes, they will be returned to us. And all the Jews which are living now are from the 2 tribes of either Yehuda and Binyamin, and some from Shevet Levi. But pretty much, if someone is not a Kohen or Levi, you can basically assume that the person is from Shevet Yehuda or Shevet Binyamin. This is the summary of what I was told as a kid. The more I checked into it, the more I realized that almost not one word of that sentence is actually true. And tonight, in the first year, we're going to outline some of the basic facts that actually happened, and some of the very important pointers which, when we approach this topic, we better know. The first thing we have to realize is that the exile of the tribes did not actually happen in one time. There didn't come one king and take all the Yidden away. It happened over a period of actually a few hundred years. There's actually an argument between Rashi and the other commentaries. Did it happen in 3 stages or did it happen in 4 stages? But they all agreed that it wasn't in one stage. Rashi is of the opinion that it happened in 3 stages, and first a few Shvatim were exiled, and the next, and the next. And the other Mefarshim and Zbordana Midrashim also are of the opinion that it happened in 4 stages. The 4 stages took each stage, a few more Shvatim left, which that itself is up to arguments, interpretations, which Shvatim left first, second, third, which we're not going to get into tonight. But the first thing we have to realize is that there wasn't one massive exile. Another thing we actually have to realize is that at a certain point in history, many of those exiled Shvatim were actually returned to Klal Yisrael. The Gemara says in Megillah, Daf Yudalid Amud Beis, that Yirmiyah Hanavi at one point disappeared, and he returned with the Aseres HaShvatim, with the 10 lost tribes. So we see that at a certain point, many of those people which were exiled in the time of Bayis Rishon were actually brought back to Klal Yisrael. He obviously did not bring back all of them, and that's why the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Kuf Yud Amud Beis, has the discussion, will the rest of them come back or not? Rabbi Kiva holds no, the other Chachamim hold yes. The halacha is that they will come back when Moshiach comes. But it's not like we originally thought, that there are only 2 Shvatim that survived and are with us in this exile. No, it's very possible that you have a neighbor from Zvulun, and you have your neighbor on the left house is from Yisachar. It doesn't have to be specifically from Shevet Yehuda and Shevet Binyamin. Which, based on this way of learning, which is the Torah way of learning, it actually solves a lot of questions, like how is it that so many Yidden, we all come from 2 Shvatim? In other words, if we take into account what the number of Jews would be, minus Holocaust, pogroms, and all the other anti-Semitic things that happened, the Jewish people today would be tremendously big. It's very, very hard to believe that this would only come from 2 Shvatim. Now that we understand that Yirmiyah brought back a lot of the Aseres HaShvatim, so now we understand why Klal Yisrael had the potential of being so big. It also answers a halachic question, that we know that Yaakov Avinu promised Yisachar that the Talmidei HaChachamim, the Rabbanim, are going to come from Shevet Yisachar. Here we're in Golos for 2,000 years and we don't have any Rabbanim from Shevet Yisachar. The Mefarshim explained that we do, because very possible that many of the Rabbanim of today are actually descendants of the Shevet Yisachar that was returned with Yirmiyah. So therefore it's quite understood that many of the Aseres HaShvatim actually came back. In addition to that, being that the exile did not happen all at once, it happened in stages, the Gemara tells us that unfortunately many of the Aseres HaShvatim during the course of the exile actually intermarried with the Goyim. A lot of their descendants unfortunately left the full path of Yiddishkeit. And that's why you can find many, many Goyim that actually trace their roots to the Aseres HaShvatim. They have Jewish minhagim, whether it's Jews in India or Jews in different tribes in China or Africa, or as a matter of fact, according to many historians, even the native Indians had certain Jewish customs, which many of this goes to show that there was a certain mingling of these Aseres HaShvatim with the nations that were with them, and they sort of adopted a pseudo-Jewish culture. To the extent that there is an opinion in Gemara that says that if a non-Jew is Mekadesh, he gives Kiddushin, gives a coin for Kesef, and he says he wants to say that he's engaged to a Jewish girl, so obviously you would say that you don't need to have a get, because you only need a get if you're engaged to a Jewish person. But there's an opinion in Gemara that says, well, maybe that guy is from the Aseres HaShvatim. Maybe his mother was from those intermarried Aseres HaShvatim. That's not the halacha. But the fact that there's even such an opinion, that itself goes to show that many, many of these Aseres HaShvatim sort of got lost. Another thing which is very important to remember is that while we're talking about the Aseres HaShvatim, the 10 tribes, even according to all the opinions, only 9 of the tribes actually went into exile. Shevet Dan, which is the 10th tribe, never was forced into exile. They actually left by themselves. There's a discussion as to when they left, over which period in time did they leave Eretz Yisrael. There's actually a discrepancy of a few hundred years. between the different opinions when Shevet Dan left. But what most people agree is that when the 10 tribes split, which it may be important that we just give a minute of background as to what we're talking about, the 10 tribes. Hashem promised the kingship to David HaMelech. So David HaMelech was the king of all Klal Yisrael. Shlomo HaMelech, his son, was also the king of the entire Klal Yisrael. Shlomo HaMelech's son was Rechavam, and he wasn't so spiritually inclined and holy like his father and grandfather. And during his lifetime, Yerovam ben Nevat came and he split the kingship. He started the new lineage of what they call Malchei Yisrael, the kingdom of the regular Jews, not Shevet Yehuda and Binyamin. So there were two dynasties going on in Eretz Yisrael at the same time. The Malchei Beis David and the Malchei Yisrael. And it's these Shvatim that got exiled. Now it seems, based on the different Mefarshim that discuss this, that at a certain point Shevet Dan wanted to mix out of politics. They didn't want to fight with this Jew, didn't want to fight with that Jew. They didn't want to fight with Shevet Yehuda. They didn't want to fight. They didn't want to be part of this whole division of Klal Yisrael. So they picked themselves up and actually left. They weren't exiled by any outside king. They actually themselves picked themselves up and they moved away. And they eventually made themselves, they went through Egypt, through Africa, India, they wandered in all different places. But the actual exile did not come from any outside force. It actually came from themselves, their decision to leave Eretz Yisrael. Another group which are with these lost tribes also did not come through exile. These are actually a whole group of Leviim called the Bnei Moshe, which is fascinating history behind this group. In Parshas Kisisa, we learn that Hashem got very upset with the Jewish people. The Jewish people made the golden calf. So Hashem looks around and he sees Moshe Rabbeinu and he tells him like this: let's make a deal. I get rid of all the Yidden, we start a new nation through you. And he uses the expression, I'm going to make you for a great nation. Moshe Rabbeinu tells him, no game, I go with the Jews. I'm staying with them. So the Eibusher says, fine. And he works out a forgiveness plan for the Klal Yisrael. But we know that whatever Hashem says, even on condition, if it's good, it has to happen. Yet where do we find that we have this great tribe of Leviim, that Moshe Rabbeinu's descendants? So according to the Mefarshim, there actually, at a certain point, were many, many Leviim, very spiritual people, called the Bnei Moshe. And they were the elite status of Leviim. What happened was when the Romans came and destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, not only did they humiliate the Jewish people, they really wanted to get as much as they can out of at the expense of the Jewish people. So they called a bunch of the Bnei Moshe together, and they said, put up a concert for us. We heard that you played in the Holy Temple, harp and all the different violins. Put up a concert for us. And they said, absolutely not. And they said, you must, or else we're going to kill many of you. And they said the famous words of Tillim, Eich noshir, shir la Hashem alad masnechor. How could we sing to Hashem on foreign land? Give us the Beis HaMikdash, we'll sing for Hashem. We don't put up concerts for Goyim. And they killed a bunch of them, and they said, tomorrow, if we come back and you don't play for us, we're going to kill all of you. The Medrash says that night, they all cut off a few of their fingers so that they will not be able to play. And when they come the next day, they physically cannot play the instruments. And Hashem was so impressed by their Mesiras Nefesh that to protect them, a cloud came and brought them all to the rest of the Jews behind the Sambatyon. In other words, they weren't exiled by any Goyish king. On the contrary, Hashem, in order to save them, brought them to the other part of the Sambatyon. Now, I'm mentioning the word Sambatyon, which is that famous fabled river. And many of you may be thinking, is this actually true? Is there really such a river? So I want to tell you an interesting story the Gemara actually brings down. The Gemara brings down a discussion between Rabbi Kiva and the Roman governor of Yerushalayim. His name was Turanufus. One day, Rabbi Kiva was called into this governor, and the governor tells him, what makes Shabbos special than all other days? So Rabbi Kiva looks at him and he says, what makes you special from all other people? Jew answers a question with a question. To which the governor says, I may not be special, but Caesar appointed me, so therefore I became special. To which Rabbi Kiva said, well, the same thing is with Shabbos. It's a regular day of the week, but Hashem gave it the status of Shabbos. To which the Roman governor says, prove it to me. So he says, I have a few proofs. One of them he tells them is, well, you ever visited your father's grave? He says, yeah. He says, you ever notice something? He says, yeah. 6 days a week, there's steam and smoke coming from his grave. On one day a week, it stops. He says, that's the day of Shabbos, because your father is in Gehenna and he's burning. So for 6 days, the smoke of Gehenna is coming out of his grave. And the seventh day, it's resting. So that itself proves Shabbos. And then he says another proof is Sambatien. You know the river that throws up rocks for 6 days, and the seventh day it actually rests. And he says, you're right. What do we see from this discussion? That Rabbi Kiva brought it down as proof, so Torah holds of it, obviously. And what's even more fascinating in a way is that the Goy accepted that proof. In other words, the Goyim at that point in time knew that there was such a river, or else they wouldn't have it. He would say, what are you talking about? There's no such river. The fact that he accepted this as a proof itself shows that it was known to the Goyim about such a river. Because actually, Josephus, in his books, writes that after Titus HaRasha destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, he went to visit all different parts of the world, and he actually crossed the Sambatyon River. So it seems that the Romans of the time actually knew about it and actually explored the Sambatyon River, and that's why the Roman governor was able to accept that as proof that Shabbos is holy. We're mentioning this, it's fascinating to point out that the Bartanura, the Bavadia Bartanura brings down that he heard from his father that in Portugal there used to be a Goy that actually had a box of sand from the Sambatyon River. And when the Jews came, and they came from Spain, and they were Marranos, but they didn't really know much about their Jewish heritage, and many of them were not interested in keeping Shabbos in the full letter of the law. He would come and show them this box, and 6 days a week the sand would jump up and down, and on the seventh day would rest. And he would say, this is the biggest proof that Shabbos actually exists. So these are the foundations connected with the whole story of the Aseres HaShvatim, which will be returned to us when Moshiach comes. But many of you may be asking, has there ever been some social interaction between us and these lost tribes? In other words, it's been a few thousand years since the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Has there been any interaction? If you want to hear about it, stay tuned to next week's shir. And again, if you want to hear the previous shiurim, all you have to do is go to youtube.com and type in Moshiach Weekly, one word, and you'll be able to share, like, and view all our previous shiurim. Once again, thank you for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you, your family, Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, with the Iskalos of the Rebbe, take it from Yad Mamish.